This is episode 214 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Sam Morris. Sam has 18 years as a corporate banker, more than 20 years in real estate acquisition and disposition. He's the CEO of Sunset Capital, a Houston-based vertically integrated real estate investment and asset management firm. Sam, welcome to the show.
And Jonathan, thanks so much for having me on, bud.
Yeah. Happy to talk to you. And there's something interesting that you sent me in the pre-form that I want to start off with, and it's about cycles. How important is it for people to know, those of us like us who've been around for the cycles in real estate?
Yeah, it's funny having a few gray hairs on you. It seems to to be beneficial in markets like this, right?
Well, it makes us distinguished as well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and frankly, having a few battle scars too, right?
Yeah.
Having gone through some ups and downs and being able to notice what's in front of you, and the best ways to react or the best ways to pivot or adjust going forward. That's actually a very, it's not something that we've been talking a lot about, but absolutely is something that's prevalent in the market today.
Yeah, and it really is something that should be coming up for newer investors, because we're in this kind of odd cycle that nobody expected, where it's not really going the way that we thought. And that's why I think, people like us who've been through, we know, okay, real estate traditionally, if you can just hang on, you'll be okay. But newer people may not know that that's part of the plan.
Yeah, it seems like, it's obviously where you're located and things like that, but there's a flatness that we've kind of had the last, call it, 15, 18 months, something like that. But it's also very different than, say 2008 and 9, right? Where that was truly a financial crisis. And I would say that the ability to borrow money, the ability to actually work things out was far worse than it was. I mean, you were really put into a dogfight. And it was operator versus operator at that point, just who can out operate the person next to him, because somebody was going to fail.
Yeah. And I think it is a completely different time. I think the national news likes to place these doom and gloom things on it to make them the same, but it's totally different. We're talking about a very big recession to now where they still try to call it a recession, but still home prices are going up.
Yeah.
So,
well, and you still have affordability issues and things like that, but it's not the same of what we had back in 08 and 09. That was truly, terrifying. This is something you can absolutely pivot and operate out of, and you can work with, vendors and lenders and all kinds of things. And there's a lot more options that are available to you if you're struggling.
there's kind of this rhetoric out there that, forcing people to take action, but part of it is true. Like, you do need to get in the game and you need to understand the risks. Because of your background at the time, you kind of had, educated risk as opposed to people who are hopping in and just hoping for the best.
Sure. Yeah. The bulk and I would even say today, still the bulk of what we do is risk mitigation.
Yeah.
Right? We're figuring out ways to get the highest return possible with the least amount of risk associated with those dollars. And so, look, that's no surprise, right? And that means asset classes. That means the way you operate. It means the way you buy it, the way you finance it. There are a lot of things where additional risk can come into play for you to be able to do the deal. And all of that needs to be at least identified and then mitigated, or it has to come into play for the returns, the expectations of the returns associated with risk.
Yeah, I love the terminology risk mitigation, because it just shows that everything has risk in real estate. I believe it's a very stable asset, but that doesn't mean that there's no risk involved. Generally, if you buy something and hang on to it a long time, you're going to make money, but a lot of things can happen: natural disasters, fires, errors in due diligence. So it is assessing that risk. And I think that's what people need to learn about. And that goes to the tipping point, those 10,000 hours that you talked about, because I feel that a lot of new investors, they're not getting enough reps. And it does make it easier if they can start with passive, because then they're reliant, but then they need more reps talking to operators so they know what's going on. Do you agree
Absolutely.
with that?
Oh, for sure. And, I always say, good or bad, the way you like it. I've been through hurricanes, I've been through floods, I've been through fires, I've been through all these kinds of things that have occurred on properties. And man, as terrible as it is to go through some of this stuff, and as terrible as impactful as it is to the people that rely on your real estate, having actually already gone through that, it really helps for the next time something happens and it's not as big of a deal to you. Right. So,
Yeah.
um, it's one of those things where, yeah, I've earned these gray hairs like we talk about. Right. And, and having already gone through that, it allows for some reassurance to our investors to go, look, if another hurricane comes through, one, we already know the risk mitigation that we're going to do at the property level, things we're going to do to, bat the hatches down and make sure that we're going to be as prepared as possible. But secondly, if something does occur, we already know the steps and the people we're going to be bringing in and things we're going to do to help, limit the damage associated.
Is so when you're comparing multifamily and storage, just for people out there who might be looking to get in as limited partners, what's the avatar? I mean, someone who wants to get into a storage syndication or someone who wants to get into a multifamily. Personally, I'm interested in both. I'm only invested right now in multifamily, but I love self storage. What's the difference between those avatars, in your opinion?
Yeah, as far as the type of investor, I would say you'd have to actually look at the type of assets, right? Because I would say for the most part, storage is like an extremely stable, more of a cash flow type of asset. You're gonna get probably less on the back end, but you get paid more along the way.
Yeah.
Multifamily, depending on how you buy and where it's at, the cash flow may be slightly less, but you can have a bigger exit. As far as your overall return. But the thing is, the overall returns are somewhat similar. The way
Yeah.
you look at it, the way they operate is very different, right? And so, and the simplest way I can say that is, on a multifamily site, you have a lot of people. On a storage site, you don't,
Duh.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's stuff, right? But at the same time, too, like at least in the state of Texas, the way the landlord laws work, you know, if you don't pay me in the state of Texas as a landlord in a multifamily, all right, there's very specific steps I have to take and timeframes I have to take it to get you removed from that property, right? And so it'll take a certain amount of time. It's going to cost a certain amount of
Right.
money, and we have obviously a lot of steps, and it all has to be documented that way. In storage, I can just throw another lock on your unit,
Change the code. Yeah,
right?
right. Old school is swap out the lock. New school is change the code. You can't even get into the building.
Yeah, and so it's just different the way that they operate, and so another saying we say is real estate's easy, people are difficult.
So, what would you tell a new investor who's interested in something more passive? How should they kind of try to figure out what's real out there about syndications and more passive investments?
Yeah, I mean, I would say educate yourself. I mean, that's literally the very first thing I would tell you to do. And so there's so much material out there. There's so many, podcasts and YouTubes and things like that. I mean, you could literally be doing this 24/7 for years.
Yeah.
But a lot of it too is to find that operator that you trust, find the GP that you trust. Um, and then go in, like you're saying, do it that way. I mean, I would tell you, we put out content, almost every day on social media. A lot of
Yeah.
it is educational in nature, right? To help educate our investor base, really. But being part of our platform really gets people a lot more education because we put out a newsletter every month that the content for that newsletter is really driven by the questions that our investors
Yeah.
have. And the theory behind that is if somebody has a question,
A lot of other people
maybe
do too.
other people do, right?
Yeah.
And then having those resources available for them to be able to continue to educate themselves associated with it. Um, we do investor events every few months, things of that nature. We're constantly out in the market. So we're belong to a lot of groups and masterminds and things of that nature. And so we're out and about. But there are a lot of those resources available to an LP investor that wants to get into things. And so, once you do that, it'll open your eyes. I tell people too, there's always another deal, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No rush.
yeah, you don't have to be like, oh my gosh, if I don't do this, I'm going to completely, miss out or whatever.
Yeah.
There's always another deal. Uh, and that's just the nature of the industry. And so, but I would tell you, educate yourself. If you're gonna invest in anything, do it in you first so that you can make those wise decisions with your hard-earned dollars.